Welcome to the first episode of a new series where we deep dive into the business of pickleball facilities. The objective is to uncover the stories behind these thriving businesses, explore each facility's ingredients for success, and what makes them unique. In July, I made my first stop to San Diego to visit Pat Rolfes, co-founder of The Hub. This is Spaces, and I'm your host, Brian Lynn.
Dude, this is our second time together.
Stoked.
Yeah.
First of all, thanks for coming to San Diego versus me, huffing it all the way to Austin. This is much nicer.
Did you drive from Nationals?
I did, yeah. We were in Dallas for that MLP Nationals combo gig, and met with Steve Kuhn, which was fun. And then you were my first ever podcast, Brian. So you're the man. Thanks for doing that. I'm loving it.
Yeah, appreciate it. Thank you so much for taking the time to do this. Thank you for the tour of the Hub. We're right now in San Diego. Can you tell us more about where we are and a little bit more about the Hub?
Yeah, for sure. So this was our first, hub. Basically, we now have three, building our fourth. Three in California, all large-scale clubs. The fourth is in Jacksonville, Florida, where my partner Ted Angelo moved to and is now building it there. So we are, on both sides of the country, which is kind of fun for us. But this particular one is super special.
But real quick, before we go any further into this episode, I do need to make a quick shout out to my sponsors, because without them, and of course you guys, none of this would be possible. You all are already familiar with Vuori. Vuori is my favorite brand. I'm wearing Vuori shorts right now. I'm wearing the core shorts, but love Vuori. Love the product. I meet tons of people in the community that are wearing Vuori shorts and products as well. And if you happen to be one of those people that love the product because it's super comfortable, or maybe you like the color, maybe you like the fabric, or maybe you like the mission of the brand, then go to vuori.com/buildingpickleball and you'll receive 20% off your first purchase. There's free shipping on any orders of $75 or more, and they do free returns. Now, the second sponsor is a sponsor I'm really excited about because I didn't really know much about them when I first heard about them. And then when I received the product, it was a very pleasant surprise. The company is called Peak. This is the Nandica. So far I'm trying out three products. This is the green tea, and this is the electrolyte powder. They make teas and coffee alternatives. I'm not always in the mood for coffee, but I still like a little bit of kick, a little bit of punch in my mornings. I need something to light a fire under my ass in the morning sometimes. And that's what I feel like Peak is really good at. The Nandica is the coffee tea alternative. It has the adaptogens and the mushrooms in it as well. The electrolyte's great for any time I'm playing pickleball and I just need a little pick-me-up, or if I know that I'm going to play a session later on in the day, then I definitely want this electrolyte so I can feel 100% in that next session. So Peak provided me a special link that I can provide to you, and that gets you 15% off your order plus free gifts like this frother and this beaker. The link is peaklife.com/bpickleball, like building, but just the B pickleball. Enjoy the show.
This was kind of before the craze. We bought the land almost 3 years ago now. And so we own the land, we built it out, and it's just a really special place on how we did it. As you saw, as you're walking through the facility, it's not all the courts row after row after row. And actually, this is how we got the name of the Hub. It spokes out like a hub of a wheel. And so in the center is our clubhouse and our pro shop, and then we have a restaurant, bar, and our fire pit and center court, and we elevated all that. So that, not center court, where the Hub area is elevated for the gathering spot, and it looks over like a hub of a wheel, it looks over all the 26 courts. And so it creates a really neat effect in all these gathering areas and cool vibe and lots of, shade. And we cover center court with the sail, and we love this place. This is a really special place to us, obviously.
It really embodies the epitome of California, and just the beauty of California too. The backdrop is just hills and mountains, and all the houses, really nice California type houses along the hills. It's super nice backdrop, but everything you're saying about how it's not just a place that was maybe previously a tennis court center and just rows of courts. It has little break areas, little patches of grass, but also like you said, like you got the full kitchen going on, like you have the pro shop. What were you doing before you opened this place up 3 years ago?
So I was running the events in Newport Beach, right? So right now the APP is happening, which is the third largest tournament of the year. I think they're pushing 1,800. So I worked with USA Pickleball to create the Golden Ticket Series, and we helped develop Newport Beach. And for that, we were running all the events and have the rights to the events. So tons of tournaments, tons of different things. Charity events to organized play, the whole thing. It was really a community-based club, and we grew it to a gigantic club. I don't own the club, and so since then, Ted and I built the restaurant. We basically sold that, got out of that to buy this land to basically start our own brand and our own clubs, and then it's just blown up from there. So when we had the vision, it was finding the land was really, really difficult. San Diego, the real estate is extremely expensive, as you can well imagine. We don't rent it, we own it. We wanted a really substantial size club. We believe in large clubs. And so we are the largest club in San Diego County. And it gives us the ability to do a lot more stuff. So yeah, that was our goal. It took us a little over a year and a half to build, and then been operating just about not quite 2 years now down here. And it's, people love it. The vibe's great. Members are cool. San Diego's the #1 vacation destination city in the United States, fun fact. And so we get a lot of drop in. We call them member for the day because they get complete member privileges. So we get a lot of that. We do a lot of tournaments and charity events and all sorts of cool stuff.
Yeah. Yeah, back to like location. Whenever people talk about real estate, they always say location, location, location. And like, this is unique because you're in like the hills in the heart of California and in San Diego. And then I've been to other facilities where I'm not knocking it, but other facilities might be in like a shopping mall plaza, and you're just kind of looking at maybe just regular stores, and you're in just a giant parking lot, right? There doesn't have this like unique appeal to it like you have here with the beautiful weather. Of course, we're in California too.
Right.
But everyone always wants to know, how much does it take to open a location? Like, when do you know whether or not this is a good deal or a bad deal?
Yeah, well, they're hard. First of all, I caution everyone, they're really hard deals to do. Capital investment is substantial. The thought process that goes into it to build them, build it right, because if you don't build them right, it's not the old adage like build it, they will come. You know, if the courts aren't correct, like you now play quite a bit, I know, and at a high level. In the very beginning, you may have been fine to play anywhere, but the better you get and the more dedicated you are to it, which really, you know, who our members are substantially, they, you know, need good courts, right? They need good spacing. They need to make sure that the surface is correct. We use Acrotech surface, and you know, they need all the right things. So one, you got to build it correctly, which is difficult. Make sure the space is there. Are you building courts? Or are you building a club? We build clubs. And then the size is important. It's hard to run a 8-court club. I mean, it's, you know, we think it's difficult. You know, we run larger scale clubs so we can handle more massive people. But the real estate is key. So, and how you design it is key. So being in an impacted area is more important. It's like we can go inland from here a half an hour, and there's tons of land and tons of things that you can do, but no one's going to drive out there to go play pickleball. So that's where the location is key, but the location comes with the price, right? And part of that challenge comes into the economics of it all. So when you're looking at it is, you know, pickleball grew up from the streets, right? And so you were used to playing for free. And that's still a lot of people's mindset. I can buy a paddle, I can go, you know, play for free in the street or get a temporary net, set it in my street. I don't understand, you know, why am I paying for a club? So that needs to create a whole different experience, and it's a whole different business model. And that's what we really specialize here at the Hub, you know, and it's intense, the policies, the programs, the staffing that we have, what we offer here. from the fire pit to the shade to the bar to the courts to the ladders to the leagues to we're now affiliated with the Hard Eights and with the Bay Area Breakers and the MLP team. So all of these things create what we're doing. And so I just caution people, it's a lot harder than build courts and they'll come. So long-winded answer, but there you go.
What you're saying towards the end of that with the amenities, but also kind of the brand deals, is that how you know whether or not the debt is worth it?
Right. So you look at debt in a number of different ways, right? So there's debt when like we bought land, right? So then you have that debt to say, okay, what's the risk on buying the land? So it's an expensive play, and most people don't buy the land. They go and they rent a building or whatever. So the land is a little bit different, and you can say, okay, well, I can sell that land off into the future, right? But now we took it and we invested millions of dollars into improving the land to build the business that we want to build. So if the business doesn't succeed, then the improvements that you did on the land doesn't necessarily make sense unless another operator can come in and do a better job. But you're kind of confining what the application is versus, hey, we're going to tear it all down and build apartment buildings here, which would work here. So you got to look at the investment of the land, or if it's a building that you're leasing, the risk of that lease, right? Because, landlords, they're making you put your name on it. Like, you're guaranteeing that lease for some point in time. And they don't necessarily, industrial buildings, they don't necessarily want to do a 2-year lease to see how it goes. You're going to put a personal guarantee, and you're going to do a long-term lease to kind of, put that out there. So there's all that risk that gets associated with it. Then your capital investment that you put into it. Okay, now I got to build all this stuff out. That's not cheap. Now what's the model, and who's going to come in and who's going to pay for it? How else can we get the ancillary revenue to make sure these things, justify? So again, they're really hard deals. The economics are challenging. When they work, they can work very well. I believe in larger scale deals, but we've been fortunate where we're self-funding these deals and we're not going out and trying to raise a bunch of money. And so it's the amount that it takes to run a 8 to 10 court facility, labor-wise and policy-wise, and the IT and programming and all that stuff is basically the same that it takes to run a 26 court facility. So you start getting economies of scale as you grow, but the risk is higher from a lease or the land or investments that go into it. So you really need to make all these good decisions and make sure that you're putting them in the right place. So a lot of people go to malls, right? They're looking to the mall model because at the mall they think, oh, there's open space and they can work, and there's parking. That's truly only part of it. You really, in my mind, you got to create this club atmosphere so they want to be part of it. And when you do that, which is hard to do, then people take ownership. They pick up their trash. They start engaging. They tell their friends. And by nature, it's a community thing, and the community helps grow your business. Again, long-winded answer, but there you go.
No, that was super fascinating. Wow, yeah, I need to marinate on that after this. But that is interesting when you talked about two things. One was that you use the word big and large a couple times, like large scale and just larger deals. And then you also talked about the court versus the club atmosphere. And if you were to choose both those words, court and club, and see which one is more synonymous with community, which is really the heart of pickleball, I feel like club is the one that's more closely related to the word community. And that makes sense. If you're building a community, then like you said, people will treat this place like it's their own rather than we're just at a public court. And if you look at public courts or just court areas, it just seems like people are just there to use it rather than, hey, we have a piece of this in a way.
You're exactly right. And remember, we're competing with free, right? So there are those public courts out there, and people are like, why am I paying you to play pickleball when I can just go down the street and play on these public courts? And so we have to bring all this additional value in to when they suddenly say, well, these courts are better and I really like the vibe here better, and they do this organized play and they're structured and they have the social event, or they, whatever it is, it's not whatever, it's all these things. You can't shortcut on any of it to basically create the value of the club. And that's where, they're paying for, basically, right? That's when they can justify, yes, I will play for a membership and do that. I California, so I equate a lot to surfing, right? So surfing's free, right? You buy a surfboard and go in the ocean and just go, surf. So selling into the surf industry is really quite interesting because there's not a lot of opportunity, because the mindset is everything's free. Even like parking passes, a lot of surfers don't even want to pay for the parking pass because it breaks the theory of everything's free. So pickleball has a little bit of that into it. As it grows, as it develops, the value of the clubs, if done right, make a lot of sense, and people are starting to appreciate the differences for sure.
Yeah, that's awesome. What do overhead costs look like for a place like this? Because you mentioned all the amenities, you mentioned the ladders, leagues, you also have the employees, you have the pro shop, you also have different events that you hold. Yeah.
Well, it's substantial. It's a business. I think with all of our clubs combined, we're over 100 and something employees. So the labor is our second most, costly expense, and that's tricky, right? And again, California, I won't get into the California labor laws, but it's not as favorable as you would think for the employer. But having the right person and people that help run your club is truly important. So, the interaction with the members, all those type of things are important, and they all work hard, right? So it's technical with our computer systems and making sure they're checked in, and the billing, and again, like you mentioned, pro shop and bar and all that kind of stuff. And so we're a service-based business. We have to address the needs of the customer, right? Running these leagues, running these ladders. We do a lot of duper events, and so tying all that together. So it's complicated. And from the expense, to answer your question, labor's our number one expense to it, besides the real estate, which is that. And then you have your insurance, and then you have your IT and your web and your marketing and all the things that go along with that. But even our policies, and we'll see if we franchise in the future or not, or just partner with people, but our policies are buttoned up, and it's important to have that structured and in place, because there's liabilities that get associated with that, and people need and want structure. And so putting all that together, it's not as easy as it sounds, for sure.
Something that you mentioned in that was franchises. So you have 3 locations in the state of California. You mentioned that you're opening one in Jacksonville. How do you feel about franchises as far as the pickleball facility space?
Well, I have mixed feelings, quite frankly. I feel there's a big rush to market. There's a big demand for courts, and so people are trying to fulfill those demands. My feeling is there's a lot of franchisors that haven't been in business long enough to prove out their financial models to basically say, do what we do because we're profitable and we're doing a great job. That's really not existing out there. I mean, there's franchisors out there that don't have facilities. Like, to me, and again, I'm an old man that had run businesses all my life, so it's shocking to me that someone would say, well, great, I'll invest into this franchise and this brand and expecting to get all these things of a company that's never actually done it. So that's a concern of mine. That would be a concern of mine for people out there. So we're focused on profitability, from a business side of it, right? The business it matters to be profitable, by the way. The business has to be profitable. It has to be run correctly. It has to be run smooth. And it's got to be repeatable. And so having 3 clubs now in place, and they're all slightly different. This is all outdoors in San Diego. Our one in Silicon Valley is all indoors. It was the largest in the country for a while at 20 courts indoors. And we're potentially looking to expand it. And then we do have one that's a fitness center as well as Pickle, and it has 8 indoors and 7 outdoors. But that's a special facility because fitness is amazing and what we do there. And then the one we're building in Jacksonville is kind of like the Pictone. Have you seen it? They're covered courts with fitness as well. And I think we're doing 32 courts there. So we're trying to make it where everything makes sense and there's a reason for it and be profitability and cash flow positive, right out of the gate or as soon as possible. I'm just nervous of a lot of people jumping into it that don't, that are going into franchises and the franchisors haven't necessarily proven their models out yet. So those would be my cautions and concern. So we're taking, it's our money, we're doing it, and we're going down the path of doing it right. And then we'll decide if we just partner with people, if we franchise, if we just keep with what we have. The future is still kind of up in the air with myself and my 3 partners. We have 3 partners in the company.
Yeah. Within that, you mentioned there should be some caution for people that may be looking at these franchises and be like, oh, I would want to be a part of that. Are there things that these individuals could look for when they're being approached or when they're approaching a franchisor? And I don't know if that's the correct term, but if they're approaching one of those facilities and be like, hey, we want to be a part of this, like, what questions might they want to ask?
Well, first of all, how do you pick a marketplace, right? Like you mentioned, location, right? So that's top on the list. How do you find that? How do you pick it? What justifies that? Is it economics? Is it location? Is it both? Is it, what is it? You notice as we came up here in we came down here to San Diego and we drove into the facility. It's right off the freeway. You don't have to go find it. It's easy to get to, access. We have 1.1 million people within a 10-mile radius from us. So we're I think in San Diego, we were 26% of the courts. Now we're less, and I call it 10%. I don't even know what it is. But the point is, we're a big facility, the largest facility in San Diego, and we're easy access to it. And so, as you saw here, as you're walking the facility, there's a lot of people here.
Yeah.
The draw is big.
Most of these people were here by 9 a.m. Yeah.
For sure.
Yeah.
Right. And you missed the people that left because they're here at 7. But anyway.
Yeah.
But the point is that the location is key. So that would be the first thing. How do I find the location? How do I do the economics to have that make sense? Because a location in downtown Austin, which would be, I'm assuming, impossible to get, that's got to be more expensive than 30 miles outside of Austin, right? So you can't charge the same in downtown Austin. So how does that financial model work when you're looking at these things? How much more is it to do a larger facility? And then how do I justify the risk? And how do I market out to the community to make sure that this is actually going to pencil? Because as soon as you ink that lease, they're making you put a personal guarantee on it.
Yeah.
Not always, but 99% of the time. So these are big, risky deals for a lot of people. And people go into it with a lot of passion, a lot of, I'd love to be in this industry. It's really fun. And it is. You can change a lot of lives, and you can impact a lot of people, meet a lot of cool people. But it's hard. And I also caution people on, if you love pickleball and you play it and you love it and you want to, don't get into working in pickleball because you won't be playing pickleball much anymore. So it's all consuming to do facilities for sure, like this especially.
Yeah, don't make emotional decisions, especially when it comes to something of this magnitude, which I just kind of gathered from you. It feels like you always said business. You always, in the first time we talked, you said something about business. You had this quote. It's like a phrase. It's like you like always make like basic business
Yeah, basic business rules apply.
Yeah, that's it.
And don't forget that basic business rules apply. Like, try to take your emotions out of it a little bit. I know everybody loves it, and there's a lot of opportunity. I get all that. It's really hard, and it's capital intensive, and again, basic business rules apply. Look at the whole thing as objectively as possible from a business perspective, not just, I want to do it so bad. It just would be great. It's like buying that house that you just love and you want to do it so bad. Then you get in, it's like, oh my God, there's termites and leaky damage. Like, I had no idea this is costing me another $100,000, and I shouldn't have been so emotional about it, basically.
Yeah, I didn't make that mistake at all.
There, see?
Twice. Not definitely not me.
Yeah, I hear you.
Yeah. One question I did have, actually someone had asked this in the comments section when I had mentioned that I was going to be out here and talking about facilities. Someone asked about key responsibilities for employees. And then I'm going to kind of change that question a little bit. If you were to make your first hire, what would be the first role that you would hire for?
So we have a role, I'm going to try to remember the title, because I let one of my employees create the title herself, and she's an amazing person. Her name is Teresa, and it's called Community Engagement Director. And basically she does a ton of programming, she does socials, she makes the hub a club. Because she's so engaging with the community and the community of our members, and does all of our programming and make it so it's fun to be, a member of the hub, right? And she's happy and she's here. My partner Ted used to call her, probably aging myself, Julie McCoy from the Love Boat, right? The cruise director, basically. And so that's a really key person. That's here a lot, and she's engaging with the members and everything else. Now that could be the owner, it could be the manager, it could be a lot of different people, but for us, that's really important to have that person. On the back end, the accounting, the policies writing, the legal stuff, I mean, that's not nearly, it's super important, but the face of the club would be the first person I hire that's going to represent your club the way you want it represented, basically.
Yeah, interesting.
And not just the owner. I said it could be the owner. It certainly needs to be the owner.
Yeah.
But it needs to be someone that's not the owner, that sometimes is also more approachable, or they would tell someone else that's not the owner something that would then get back to the owner, which is really helpful. I mean, criticism isn't all, bad. It's good to take, hear things from other people, through other people for that matter.
Yeah. It's kind of why I feel like it's the premise of that show, like Undercover Bosses, right?
Right.
Like, okay. You'll hear a lot more from people that have like their boots on the floor and not someone who's like a little bit higher up. So like people are, like you said,
you learn a ton from that. I love that show, actually.
Yeah.
I should do that.
Yeah.
A little goatee or something.
Hey, I'll start the content series. The virtual pro shop. Let's talk about that, because you do have your hands in co-founding Pickleball Superstore, and of course that's very, very relevant in this whole thing, because we went to the pro shop there, and physical pro shop is great, right? It definitely looks very appealing, but then not every business can afford that, and sounds like you and Steve Rack have come up with a solution called the virtual pro shop. Can you tell us a little bit about that?
Yeah, for sure. So and Ted Angelo, my partner here in the hub, so we had talked about it, a while ago, and then Steve Rack, who's the CEO and co-founder of the three of us co-founded Pickleball Superstore, and so he brought technology to the table with his gig affiliate program, which is, as you know, an affiliate program, but it's linked into the code. So as soon as you connect us with a customer, you are forever linked to that customer. It's not cookie based, so it becomes very sustainable for people. So with that concept, or with that technology, we can do other things. And one of the things that we've created is this virtual pro shop. So the problem with pro shops essentially, and again, we're a large scale club, so it's a little different. We can support it financially, but it's a big investment. you get a lot of churn of product. The paddle that's hot 6 months ago isn't hot today, and God forbid Yola comes out with something. But I'll cut that. Not joking. But the point being is that it's hard for these operators to basically invest $50,000+ into a pro shop, and really what you are is a convenience store. We sell a ton of water and Gatorade and protein bars and weights and grips and glasses and balls, and that's really a ton of it. We do sell paddles as well, for sure. We do a lot of rental paddles and things like that. So when you're trying to carry all these brands, it's just really difficult, and somebody comes in with a new brand saying, oh, I really like that. So we created what we call a virtual pro shop, where we demo a bunch of paddles. Like here in San Diego, I think we demo like 80 paddles, too many. But we don't carry 80 paddles, that would be insane. But if someone really wanted to try something, and we have it for them to try, which is part of the club experience, right? I want to try this new paddle and everything else, right? So that's, again, part of this experience that we do. And we rent that, or we demo it. Members, I think it's $5. For a non-member, it's $10. And they can change them out midday. They can do it all day. It's fun. If they want to buy it and we don't carry it, then they scan the code. It goes right to Pickleball Superstore, embeds the code, embeds the hub with them. And so they get a discount. Superstore sells it and ships it to them directly, and the hub makes the commission on that paddle. And then we're forever connected. So again, I mentioned San Diego being the #1 vacation destination. So imagine someone coming in from Austin, right? And now you demo something, you're like, oh, I've never seen it anywhere. I'm gonna buy that, you buy that through. And then you leave and you never come back to San Diego. It's a sad day for us, but we are forever connected. And so if you ever go back and buy balls or glasses or weights, we're making revenue on the fact that you came into the hub for one day to come visit. So it's really impactful, and it helps manage the club's pro shops, especially for smaller, courts, like 10, 12 court facilities, and the investments that they're making already. It's hard, and then I'm not dealing with 40 different vendors either. I'm dealing with one vendor, so it's really a neat program for sure.
Yeah, very interesting. I can see that solving. I think it's a solution. I think physical inventories, with the advent of technology and leveraging technology, I don't think having physical inventory is something that's like super necessary at this point for like brick and mortar. So the virtual pro shop is such a unique and good solution.
Yeah, I mean, you still want to have product there, so we still carry the fast movers, because people are still impulse buy people, like, I gotta have a paddle now, right?
Yeah.
And so, and it's, again, back to the club, it's part of the club atmosphere. It's part of having that ability to do it. And we have sponsors, Carbon, for example, and other, brands. And so, they support us, we support them, and so we want to carry their products. So there's a balancing act to all of it, but the pro shops can be tricky and a cash suck.
Yeah.
So you got to be careful with it.
Yeah, I won't name the brands, but there are some brands on the walls where you're just like, well, these are going to be sold at a loss. Like these, just because paddle technology moves so fast, like, oh, well, this paddle's no longer relevant.
Right. We have some on our walls still from 2 years, and we'll fire sell the stuff off, and it still doesn't move. It's just it's just what do you do with it, right?
Yeah.
So, and a lot of time we donate them or give them away to kids that are coming in or whatever. But anyway, you get it.
Yeah.
It's tricky.
Yeah, definitely.
For sure, and a lot of time spent on it.
Yeah. Well, this concludes the session, man. I mean, you answered a lot of the questions with such great detail. I really appreciate it. I'd certainly learned a lot. I'm not opening a facility up anytime soon, but these are things that people were asking about in the comment section in previous videos I had made, and I just didn't have the proper follow-up for it, but now I do. Thanks to you, so I appreciate that. Do you have any other announcements, future projects that you guys are working on, anything else you want to talk about before we end this?
Well, we're always working on something, right? So, I appreciate that. Like I said in our other podcast, it's an entrepreneur's playground right now. So there's a lot of opportunities, not just with the club space, but with, paddles, with lots of different things. So, But I think the next step is let's get you up to Silicon Valley, and then let's get you to Alameda at the hub there, and then I'll have to trek over to Florida, and we'll do one there too, Brian. Let's make the circuit.
Yeah.
But we'll start with your San Diego. There you go, your San Diego hub stop. And thanks for coming, brother.
Yeah. Thank you. Remember, general business rules still apply.
There you go.
That always sticks in my head. Yeah. Thank you, man. I appreciate it.
Yeah. Thanks, bro.